Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Juju Show, number 21. I'm Rick Harding with Juju Engineering, and I've got a couple of we got community guests and an engineering guest here today. So, hey, James, how you doing, man? Long time no see.
Hey, how's it going, guys? James here from People Data Labs. Just checking in and seeing how things are going in the Juju community this week.
Hold on, that's accountable. Love it. I love it. Kevin, how's your week been?
Hey. So far, so good. It's hump day.
It's hump day. It is. It is Wednesday. It's wife's birthday. So I was going to be like, make it a quick show. But unfortunately, we have a lot of stuff that's happened in the last 2 weeks. I was going through the mailing list and crap's picking up. So let's jump into it and get into the community news. Starting off with Juju 2.2.3 release, which is a point release on the current stable branch of Juju, while 2.3 trucks on in development. I wanted to call it out because they snuck some features, forward compatible features into this release, which may sneak by you going, oh, it's just bug fixes, but it's more than that. Looks like they added a new flag to the remove machine command, which will keep the instance around afterwards, which is kind of interesting. I'm curious now what came from, what someone was up to, where they were like, I want to get rid of the machine in Juju, but I want it to stick around so I can play with it some more or something. And if you guys find a use for that.
Yeah, if you just have way too much money and you're like, I want to keep these billing.
All right. I'm sure there's a better reason than that. There's some bundle stuff that I'm going to hold off because that's actually my main topic for the show today, is to walk through some of that. So skip coming up from the future. And then obviously then there's a bunch of bug fixes. And so make sure to get it if you're using a snap, which I recommend because I'm loving the snap Juju, where I just snap upgrade Juju and get me some new, or not even that, it auto upgrades. So give me some new grader Juju that way. And then it's available on Mac and other platforms as well. So brew upgrade Juju if you're on Mac, or I'm not sure how you upgrade it on Windows. I got to be honest. I should play with that sometime. Been a while since I booted my Windows VM. So that's release number 1. Release thing number 2, the Charm layer index is now on GitHub. So if you go to interfaces.juju.solutions, you may notice a new interface called GitHub. And so while it is not as pretty for showing the interfaces, it does make one thing much easier, which is submitting pull requests and updates against it. And BD, I think you took advantage of that. I think the same day they did it, I thought I saw PRs from you going by.
Yeah, I noticed a few little things that needed some touch-ups. I thought I'd hop right on that.
There you go. So you got to love it when you're like, I wonder if we do this, if it'll make it easier for people to get involved. And then like an hour later, oh, look, it did. So make sure that you are aware of that and get your updates and your interfaces in. And I have to say, playing with some of the interfaces from folks as I work on some of my charms, it's darn handy to have. And release number 3, the Charm snap, which is the Charms command that you use to interact with the Charm store to upload and publish and manage your charms and bundles at jujucharms.com. That is now a confined snap. So that's really kind of cool that it's, snaps tend to start out kind of in dev mode where they're not as confined and locked down. They have access to more of the system than they should. And now that all the stuff is kind of worked out, all the kinks out, all the little bits there, it's completely confined. So that's awesome. The one thing I didn't see and haven't tried, because when you install with a flag that says allow it to be in classic or dev mode, whether or not you need to reinstall the snap to get it fully confined, or if it kind of upgrades itself into a confined state. I'm guessing not. Anyone try it?
Yeah, I tried it. I removed and reinstalled. The refresh didn't pick up the new confinement.
That's what I was expecting. So I guess this is a call there. It's great that they did that work. And now for those of us that have the snap, it's time to kind of remove it and bring it back again, which will probably mean you got to have to re-log in and all that. But, that's not that bad. A login away to have confinement is a good thing.
Yep.
Cool. And then release number 4. Good grief, it's getting crazy here. OpenStack yesterday released their 1708 OpenStack Charm release, which includes says 204 bug fixes across charms and support for Pike, including new charms for Noki, Neutron internal DNS, and some Percona cluster tuning. So what I love about this is their release announcement has a list of I mean, that looks to be about 20 to 30 different folks who contributed to the updates in this release. So if you're running OpenStack, you care about OpenStack, new charms, new goodies for you, bugs fixed for you, go get on top of that, try it out. The team's kicking butt there. It's really awesome to see. Whew. And I think that's the last of the release stuff. Is that enough new stuff for between shows? I tell you what. Next up, promulgations of the week. The InfluxDB Charm, which is obviously a database kind of storage charm for time series related data. That is promulgated and up, so you can now get that at just jujucharms.com/influxdb. And an Apache 2 charm is promulgated. Now this one, I should have looked, because I think what this is a move from an old charm to a newer, more maintained Apache 2, because there was always a promulgated Apache 2. So I think this is a shift to a better, more supported charm. So if you are running Apache, you might want to check this out, because it'll probably have some updates and some tweaks in it that you'll be interested in as it gets more love and attention rolling forward. And then Stuart Bishop, the maintainer of the Postgres Charm, he had a really good blog post and kind of announcement that the Postgres Charm now supports point-in-time recovery, and kind of how to use it, why you would use it. And I wanted to call this out because this is the kind of stuff like I just love, where folks are taking, really solid operational production, running stuff in production knowledge, baking it into the charm and making it easy to use, consume, and just, frankly, ready to rock and roll for you, for people who don't have the experience that Stuart has in running Postgres in production at scale and everything. So I'd encourage, if you guys are working on charms and you add things like this kind of important operational features, you make something support HA better, or a better kind of failover setup or whatnot, hit up the mailing list, let folks know it's there and available. And the blog post on kind of how to walk through it and all that was really well done. So I want to encourage folks to kind of, be like Stuart, man. It was awesome. You guys should be like Stuart. That's what I want to be, like Stuart when I grow up. You guys have anything? You guys, you're snickering at me. All right. Next up, so now we have the new question time. There was a question. I love how it's like Newbie Question, which is totally legit. It's just, how do I replace a machine in a deployed model? The question is, I have something I deployed, and one of my machines goes belly up. What happens? How do I get back? What do I do? And unfortunately, I couldn't give the answer that I think the person wanted. They wanted to go, well, if you Juju, recover unit or whatnot, or recover machine, it would rebuild another one just like it. But that's not quite how it works. And it's because software is complicated, and how software failover and scale out of different types of applications is unique. You never know what you actually have to do for that. And the reasons for failure could range from maybe the machine was running out of resources and it choked itself to death, or who knows what. So the recovery can't, it's not always best to just blatantly, well, let's just try again. Doesn't always work out. And so in this case, they were curious, if they had a Kubernetes core cluster running, how would they bring it back? And my answer to them was to look at what was in the bundle they deployed. And on this case, they had a couple of units on one machine, and then kind of walk through, well, what you would do is you would add unit, one of the applications, which would bring up a new machine. And then you would then add unit and target that new machine for the other applications, that it would create a container on it and stick the second application in the container. So you had to think through a little bit, because it needed to be in order, right? You need to first get a machine with application 1 on it, and then add unit and target application 2 into a container on it. So not too bad. It was basically, 2 add unit commands, and then you'd have to figure out what you need as far as failover or transfer of information and data among those applications. Again, all is application dependent, so we didn't get too in the weeds there. That's all very scriptable. There's like a charm that's doing auto scaling charm that folks can play with. There's the libjuju, which could do things like, be scripted to kind of automatically take those steps if it's an application you use a lot, or a set of applications you use a lot. So there's a lot of different ways you can try to automate that or script it as much as possible. But at the end of the day, in this case, it's basically a couple of add unit commands done in order, and you'd be, off to the races a little bit. Anything else you guys can think of for that kind of situation?
Sounds about dead on for what I do.
All right. So I didn't lead the poor guy astray. That's good. The other one was just one of those like, sometimes you use it so much you forget. And they were like, hey, I want to deploy the same charm but with a different name. I mean, don't we all, right? I mean, we always have, MySQL, you want, master and follower or whatever you want. And they were confused by that. And basically, it's dirt simple. There's an extra optional argument to the deploy command, which will take an arbitrary name. So I could Juju deploy HA proxy and call it prod load balancer if I wanted to. And when I did Juju status, I would see prod load balancer, and I would see the charm that was used was HA proxy. But you don't have to, you can give it whatever arbitrary meaningful name works for you and where your workplace. So I encourage folks to use that to customize those names when they do a deployment, make things meaningful and all that. And in the case of deploying it twice, no problem. As long as they have different names, deploy it as many times as you want. If you need to deploy something for every customer you have or whatnot, by all means, customer 1 through 100, have at it. You guys think of any other kind of simple questions like that you kind of get in IRC or anything where you're like, oh, you forget it's not.
This seems to be common where we keep talking about sharing our tips and tricks.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of these days we're going to write it down. You know what I'm saying?
One of these days we will. That's for sure. Oh, for now.
Tom Barber's trying to make a book. That's
right.
That's right.
Where's Tom at? What's going on with that? I got to check up on him. I haven't heard about that in a while. I think he might be trying to get busy or something and not work on it. All righty. So until I get a hold of Tom, I've got my next tip trick thing for you today. This is new in Juju 2.2.3. And what this is, it's about deploying a bundle. So I'm going to start off by showing you what I got here. All right. So what do I have? I have Grafana running on my MAS, which is why it's got this 10 dot address. And notice it's running HTTPS. And I can go here and it can log in. Now, okay, great, Rick. What are you putting Grafana in front of? Oop. Come back, GUI. Oh, come on. All right, now I've got to go cheat and get my password stuff out of here. Everyone look away while I copy and paste my password. All right, here's what I've got. So I have 2 Ubuntu machines that I am feeding data with Telegraph out of them into Prometheus. And Prometheus is going to collect that data. And then Grafana is going to let me log in and visualize that data with some dashboards. And then I have HA proxy in front of Grafana, which is providing an actual web endpoint for it, the HTTPS, the SSL termination, along with proxying the Grafana, which runs on port 3000 to a port 80. So this is kind of the flow of stuff. It kind of just goes around the circle, data comes in and I get it out. So not a lot to it. Now, what's interesting here is that there's these new features in Juju 2.2.3 that allow you to break apart this model in a couple of different ways. And this is what's new and exciting. All right, so I have the bundle, right? So what's great is that if I were to do this in production, I would want to have different SSL certificates for my HA proxy endpoint. Grafana has an admin user, which has a password, which by default in my bundle just says change me. I want to have a different password for that Grafana every time I deployed it, if I used it in staging or production, or if I did it on different clouds in different regions. And the other thing I'll get into in a second. So what can you do? You can Juju deploy this bundle, and that's fine, right? That'll work. And actually, let's do this. Let's switch over to Jazz where I can play with some models. Let's do. All right. Add model, monitor things to Google in Jazz here. Oh, it already exists. That's right. I preset this up, didn't I? See, it's helpful if I remember this stuff. All right. I don't think I have anything here, though. I think it's empty. Let's see. Yep, empty model. Yay. Okay, so I could Juju deploy my bundle I've created here, and that would work. It would not have any SSL keys because I don't want to stick my SSL keys in my bundle. It would have the default password for Grafana because it's what's defined in the bundle. But for reality, what I really want to do is I want to be able to override that. And so what there is now is a new flag called bundle config. And what bundle config does is it lets me provide a YAML file that looks just like a bundle file. And that bundle config file will then overwrite anything in the bundle that I'm deploying. So in my case, I've written out an overrides.yaml. And this overrides.yaml, it looks just like a bundle file. It starts with the applications key. It goes into what the application is, and it takes an options key after that, which is what you're actually overriding. And here I can set all the information that I want set. So in this case, I'm going to set my Grafana password to I'm changed. So instead of change me, if I were to deploy this bundle using that flag of bundle config, my actual deployment will come out with I'm changed as the password. For HA proxy, I'm actually can do things like include a file, and I can base 64 it. So there's two ways to include a file as bundle config, where Juju, when I deploy, will then read the file in, it'll serialize it, and stick it in the config as part of the deploy. So you can do it with a base 64, which does just what you think it would. It takes the string value of that file, base 64s it, makes it very transparent as far as any kind of issues with line breaks and all that kind of stuff. It's just one solid string, and it feeds it across to the charm on the other side. So to do SSL with HA proxy, I need to specify a key and a certificate, and I can include those config options here. Notice those were not in the bundle that I was using. If I Juju deploy my bundle without this, it would just be a non-SSL enabled deployment. That's all it would be. And then Prometheus, the other way you can include a file is just include the raw file. Now, Prometheus can accept extra jobs, basically, which are defined as YAML. And I've created one of these jobs definitions with the scrape jobs.yaml. So let's cat that out. And basically, it just says, hey, I want you to go to this URL, HTTPS. I want you to grab from this address. This is actually the address of the controller in my MAS I was looking at. And this is how to log in. So it's just custom Prometheus stuff. It could be whatever in the world you want it to be. And I can pass that in. Other really good examples of this would be if you're using Apache or another web server where you need to have different vhosts. You can have a file that defines the vhost config and pass it into the Apache charm so that it writes out the different the vhosts for you. Trying to think of other examples. It may just be that you don't want to stick something in the bundle. Maybe it's something that changes from deployment to deployment, a customer name or a contact phone number or something. You could stick it in a file outside and then include it at deploy time. So let's go through now. If in my little model here on Jazz, I can Juju deploy bundle.yaml, and I can do bundle config, and then it's overrides.yaml, and let it rip. Ba-dum-bum. You can do it, little thing. It's basically got to talk to the charm store, identify the charms, get the latest revision, and all that. So here you can see it coming back with it now. So the key thing here is I've written up a blog post that I will post out later today after the show that walks through this one by one. But what we've done is we've looked at which things in my model are consistent and which things are unique per deployment. And we've broken them out. And in this way, the bundle can be shared among teams or divisions or testing and staging or whatnot. Yet I can have this unique bit, which can be tracked in version control elsewhere, could be kept separate for security reasons. Maybe my developers provide the bundle, but I have super secret people who handle things like our SSL keys and all that, so that they're not generally available for all to get access to. Secret passwords to production and all that can all be kept separately and really only brought in at deploy time, that one time. So how do I check this out? Well, it's all just set in config, just like anything else would. So let's Grafana. I always want to spell Grafana PH. I don't know why. What is it? Admin password, I think. So there you go. So here you can see in my config, the password is in fact I'm changed and not change me. Let's go check the Prometheus and get the, I think it was called Scrape Jobs. There we go. And so here you can see the output of my YAML file that I passed in. I didn't have to figure out how in the world to copy and paste this into a command line flag to deploy. And the SSL key information is there as well on the HA proxy. So that's kind of the team snuck in, I feel like, a bit of a big feature on a point release, but it's a darn handy chunk of work there.
Yeah. Hey, Rick, do you know, when you specified your override YAML, can that live remotely, or is that currently a local path?
It's a local path right now, yeah. Okay. But there's even, it goes a step further. So at the moment, it will only process the include stuff if it's a local bundle as well. Although I was talking with the engineer on that, and they're going to release a 2.2.4, I think, soon. And I was asking him to see if he can update that. Because it's a very fine line. What we don't want is that include file and include base64 can actually be in the bundle itself. It doesn't have to be in the override file. And my concern is that we end up with charms or bundles in the store that don't work for everybody, that are publicly available, because people would have, well, you have to have the special file that you don't have in order for this to work. So I was very nervous about how this was going to work in that line of thinking. I think what we need to do, we haven't done it yet, is that the Charm store needs to allow you to submit those bundles to the Charm store, but then not let you make them publicly available to everyone if they have that include file bit. Like, they should work out of the box without special files from the end user. But if you want to keep it for personal use and all that, you're totally good to go, right? You can put them in the store. At the moment, Juju will not process the file if it's not a local bundle. So we're going to change that. I think change that behavior in the future, where it'll process for both local and remote bundles as well. Sorry, is that clear? I feel like I just talked bundle, local, remote, like mud there.
Yeah, I get it.
All right.
Clear enough. Let me ask you something else. Oh, nope, beating my turn.
Oh.
I really have to go, or else I'll forget my question. Yeah. Can I use these overrides or include files to remove instances? Let's say my default bundle spins up 3 instances, and I want to. Okay.
Well, so you can't remove stuff that's defined. You can override. You know what the good question is, and I didn't try it. I should try it. It's not in the documentation either. Is whether overrides can specify like a different num units. So
yeah, right.
If I were to do Grafana,
I was able to successfully get all of the options, all of the application config from the bundle to work in the overrides.
You were what now?
I was able to successfully get all of the application config from a bundle to work in the overrides.
Including num units and things like constraints and such?
Yes.
Okay, cool. That's good. Nice. I mean, it makes sense. So in theory, you could shrink the number of units down. You couldn't say bundle don't deploy Grafana. Like that's what I like is that it lets us focus on what does the model look like, and that's pretty static and repeatable, but you can now flex that model a little bit with this overriding these options.
Cool.
Very cool. Go give it a shot. Go look at what you've got going on, how you're handling this type of information in your current bundles. And I mean, I'm going to bet at least half the folks out there could find a way to use this to better set up their workflow between, if not between dev, prod, and staging, then between things like repeating it in this cloud, this region, customer 1, customer 2. Alrighty, that's all I had to show today. That went faster than I thought. I guess it takes a lot longer to type it out in a blog post than it does to kind of show it off. You guys have anything else? Any other news or questions or anything on there?
No, but I cut BD off. Did you want to add something? Now I feel bad.
You made me forget what I had to say.
Oh no!
It's okay. It most likely wasn't very important. But Rick, these are great features. Thanks for demoing this stuff today. I can already see probably 1,000 lines of code coming out of my bundles here. Just,
I tell you, yeah, you just play with it. I know at first I was like, okay, I understand what you did there. And then as I set up this example and used it, I was like, oh, this is good stuff. This is good stuff.
Totally. That's awesome. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah. All right, then, everyone. Well, that concludes today's Juju Show. See you all in 2 weeks. And until then, go get your Juju on.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. See ya.